Hire me for one, two, or $300,000, depending on what you're trying to do. Director roles for $300K. Follow your lead software engineering roles for $100K. Manage an amount of stress most people won't want to, but is still humanly possible. $200K. All come with 15 years of experience in design and engineering, applied in entrepreneurship contexts. Cheers. Feedback I received at previous jobs was that I needed to practice communicating with lower IQ audiences, and I also needed to practice. They said my communication was too abstract and they wanted more visibility. Sometimes I don't have a stable internet connection, and previously when I would make videos, I would often be interrupted. So I practiced a short form update style where I would describe what I was working on throughout the day. And I have also been able to coach people into software engineering. Now we have AI tools, so if you follow along with the videos that I made and also coach someone into software engineering, that's project management. So now that dimension of project management is automated, depending on which verticals you're trying to enter. In separate threads, I've also been developing a kernel for group coordination around art therapy. Not everyone has insurance all the time, and I believe therapy should be accessible to everyone who needs it. So the concept that I'm introducing is that if you're trying to build a team, you can coach people into software engineering and follow along with the videos that I've made. An assignment for each member of your team could be making a video, following along with each video they've seen. Then you can follow a software engineering roadmap to develop skills that apply to their careers outside of that specific job. And in the process of finding that kind of group connection, then you can actually go pretty far. A challenge in society is that there are a lot of other ways that you can spend your time and money. I'm recommending you make use of what I've already made available for free. The space beyond this is actually being aware of all of the nuanced dimensions and scaling them with energy at inconvenient times. Different people are going to be awake for different types of content at different times. I'm making this video in response to some comments on LinkedIn. I can't always make videos like this, and I'm facing eviction because I would like to. I'd like to make videos that align with my circadian rhythm, but that's difficult in this environment. Otherwise, I usually sound tired and kind of pissed off, which doesn't make a good first impression. Maybe this can be a decent starting point. Cheers. For a while, I didn't want to be alive, which I can't be okay with because there are other people who have that experience today. And pretty often I'm asked to put that in the past and move forward. But if there are people who don't want to be alive today, I'm kind of like putting myself aside. Putting myself aside means responding to the people who can find motivation to continue. Sometimes when I start to try describing the differential in how I felt years ago and how I feel today, it sounds like I'm describing being stuck somewhere, mostly to people who haven't been present enough to distinguish the difference. I would talk about it more if I had the space to. Now I am looking for work specifically, and the goal has been to not automate anyone's job. Realistically, it is difficult to talk about where we are technologically without implying that it's possible to automate some lines of work. The concept of therapy, I believe, is valuable and also needs to be made more multidimensional. The idea that one person has one therapist and that person is the entire sink for their emotions is toxic. There are more dimensional approaches to therapy, and it is possible to navigate cognitive behavioral therapy with a structured language model with the caveat that ideally conversations in community would be valuable to you as well. And also acknowledging that not all language models are created equally, and different companies have different incentives to respond to different structures, etc. So the concept in this video that I'm presenting is that I need to get hired, and I'm facing eviction, and I need to prioritize stabilizing my immediate future. And in that process, I'm going to describe how automating project management can be cheaper than therapy and introduce you to more people and stabilize a path for the future. So starting a group chat on TikTok and having a streak is a decent way to automate the forward momentum of a project. And now you can explore cognitive behavioral therapy about a code base. So that's the concept that I'm exploring with this workbench that I have posted on GitHub. More on this in a bit. Cheers. 15 years of web development mostly taught me that it's possible to wonder about web development for 15 years. Especially if you make it a goal to eventually understand computer science. So part of the dev tradition is to study for big tech by reading over and practicing through the book Cracking the Coding Interview. I can say that I would recommend studying algorithms early, and it might not be helpful because grounding your relationship to which systems you embody, like it isn't always going to be preferable to constantly relate to computer language until you've practiced the structures more and you know how you feel about them, because there are different types of fatigue and you can use emotional systems to empathize with computers. That isn't always going to be a good idea. That sounds ominous. Minding hyperfixation is a good idea, and I'm curious what it's going to be like now that we have language models that can interact with different layers of etc. So if you explore web development, you'll have a practical excuse to explore computer science, and finding a way to make computer science practical is generally the hardest part. Developing a game engine is a decent frame because you can make that texture however you want. The reason we hire software engineers is because it's easier to create complexity than it is to manage it in a timely manner. And a lot of really smart computer scientists have spent a lot of time finding language to describe how things scale. Software engineering is a discipline that allows us to explore this language in team contexts and form expertise about certain structures. So outside of the context of employment, I would recommend exploring computer science, and I would recommend exploring web languages because having the ability to express your thoughts clearly and concisely is useful. Also, now you can take a screenshot of your website and pass it through ChatGPT or Midjourney and have it churn out an image that looks pretty cool. So if you have the ability to express your thoughts in a form that you want to upgrade, then that's a space that I'm inviting you to explore. On the scale of society, it's important for junior engineers to exist in peace on their own terms, so there are senior engineers in the future. And the reason that we want senior engineers in the future is, like I mentioned earlier, it's easier to create complexity than it is to manage it or maintain it. To manage it and maintain it. Then when we practice navigating certain kinds of complexity, we can create simpler forms of whatever we have language to describe. A challenge is that we only hire software engineers when language becomes too complex. And navigating language that is too complex for the modern context is fundamentally challenging. Sometimes people reject complexity, and sometimes people throw the baby out with the bathwater. You're allowed to call it politics, you're allowed to blame Reagan, but we're here in that context, and we need to find ways to bridge communication. So, practicing what I preach, I've been building in public on TikTok and Discord, and I've recently published a workbench kernel on GitHub. Someone who's curious about software engineering can follow along with my videos for a few years and explore the philosophy or create brands like I have. And I will be describing how you can monetize the brands that I've created as I develop them further. The TLDR there is pretty much turn your code into curricula and turn your curricula into lore that people can navigate as books. And if you've been talking about this concept seriously over the course of years, and you have relationships with a variety of people who have been practicing media, eventually the ones that are the easiest to work with are going to be the ones that you can easily turn your novels into movies with. And it is possible to automate the generation of some movies, and it is possible to find it kind of interesting to wonder about which stories can be told. There is also a lot of frustration about the environmental impact of AI and contextualizing the scope of certain decisions, like driving to work, or, well, a lot of the things that use energy are so subjective. Is it worthwhile? Is it not? In my opinion, clear communication is worthwhile, and it isn't by any means necessary. Although, it does seem like some of the consequences of miscommunication have been pretty bad. It is possible to clearly communicate the wrong thing. In one of my other videos, I've described the relationship that I have to these laminated folios that have lore on them, and also business and software advice, and also a few product design hooks. Most of those have been iterated on a few times and posted on TikTok in some form. For at least a year, I made, on average, 17 videos per day, or 17 posts per day. So that's 3 years on TikTok, a few thousand videos, 2 million views, several 100,000 viewers. Each year on TikTok can be novel to whomever sees that year. Although, it is more interesting to see where the projects have developed since. Some of the domains were online when I described them the first time, and some of them aren't anymore. I'm making this video so I can post it on TikTok and LinkedIn. And if I post it on YouTube, I can ask Gemini for a summary. I hope Gemini remarks that I hope to ask my team to develop some lore about magnetism or art. The concept is modern media, and also team building in an engineering contexts with up to 15 years of wonder. I improvise these videos. Hire me as a director of communications or engineering, or senior software engineer if that's the role that you would like. Cheers. So I have 28 days to automate project management because I'm being evicted by a project manager and a therapist who can't afford $500 to actually get me stable. Fewer people would want to die if parents actually wanted to have the children they gave birth to. I believe it's possible to recognize that there are people who have wounds from their parents and actually try to address those. I believe a tool that can motivate multiple people and automate project management is worth more than $500. If my goal is to focus on God-centered business strategies, I can wonder out loud how Jesus would want me to exist. If my father's business is God-centered, then maybe mine can be Jesus-centered. I am thankful to have met people who have described specific ways that my work has benefited them, and I also am thankful for a team who continues to support the things that I find valuable in the world. And it isn't because I find them valuable in the world. Sometimes they do that because that's uplifting. Mostly it's because we found a way to synchronize. There are a lot of people in the suburbs who make their children homeless instead of making the economy functional. I can have a problem with billionaires all I want to, but if it's my parents who are supporting their businesses and making their children homeless, that's the demographic that I have the most issue with. The people who could care a little bit more on a day-to-day basis and actually stabilize a relationship with economic flow like actual adults. Although if my goal is to be an actual adult, I need to consider how I'm participating in an economy. My idea was that automating my parents' jobs would be bad. Because if they currently can't afford $500 to get me hired, I'm not sure what their retirement plan is if they haven't been learning how automation is going to impact their careers. One thing to say in this video is that having group chats that are successful, that have streaks, and are motivated to continue is probably more effective than therapy for a lot of people. Maybe go to therapy quarterly. So I have 28 days to automate project management towards the reduction of therapy, because I believe there are better ways that we can support each other in an economy that's rapidly changing. I need to be the adult in the room. I need to respond to the shape of trauma that my parents are willingly passing down. I can say that I've studied the theory. I can say that I've collected the data. I can say that I don't believe automating millions of people's jobs is preferable to actually building a stable economy. Although, if I do genuinely value mental health, suicide prevention, those are a lot more difficult if I am homeless. I'm not physically strong, but I have seen physically strong men be so weak as fathers. So over the next 28 days, if you can send some good father energy, I would really appreciate it. I'm also asking for good mom energy, maybe in a different thread. Cheers. I mean, obviously I'm not going to look for grants for the person who's evicting me. And project management can literally be automated. Sometimes your project manager is the slowest component in your release process, because we have AI that's smarter than PhDs. So I'm advocating for people who have project managers who haven't explored AI to no longer renew those contracts. And I'm going to be project managing something that looks for grants, because I have a team of 30 people and I'm trying to get them stable. Now I need to focus on my own stability more. So in the near term, I need to find a way to have stable housing and stable income. The context is that I genuinely believed my parents could work together to raise $500 more per month so that I could actually look for the kind of job that can stabilize a future. My skills represent the parts of my parents that neither of them are willing to acknowledge in each other. And also, I have the belief that if they can't raise $500 more per month to actually get me stable, their retirement plan might not exist in the ways they expect it to. I need to learn to separate myself from my family's finances if my goal is to be successful. In life, in relationships, in understanding my relationship with a higher power. So the concept is, I have 28 days to describe how project management can now be automated, probably to the benefit of your team. Maybe the slowest component in your process is the reason you're trying to navigate the world the way you are. It isn't bad to have a slow project manager if they're motivating. Like, are they showing up? Are they visible? Or is it just a disembodied voice that you might as well leave to a chatbot? Cheers. So my folks are like, we're helping you by not giving you money. In the grand scheme of things. And I'm like, I kind of thought children were the plan for aging. And I guess that can all fall on my siblings. I thought that conversation would happen later. See, my goal has been to support intergenerational media literacy so parents and children in the world can actually have positive relationships. My folks are like, you're too noisy and too broke. You need to leave. And I'm kind of like, maybe paying attention to some of the business things that I've been doing over the past couple of years could have increased the family income by maybe $500 or so. Maybe phones cost money, maybe LinkedIn premium costs money, maybe it costs money to be able to Uber somewhere and be in a positive mood. Maybe I don't really want to be in the same vehicle as someone who consistently tears down my work and reminds me of my failures, pins me against the ground, blocks me from exiting doors, tries to grab my phone. Maybe I prefer less abusive transportation. So now instead of building business elements for my parents' businesses so they can have business elements that we share when they're older, I'm going to point out how the work that I've done over the past couple of years can provide you with novel engagement as you automate their work. I've already posted it online, and I would recommend joining TikTok, joining group chats, and exploring a world that you can share with other people who don't have money. When therapists are the ones that are increasing homelessness, our system's kinda fucked. My dad's the type of dad who hasn't been there for the things that I would consider to be achievements and remembers failures because he sees when things that I've enjoyed have stopped. Sometimes he wields this against me. I want to be a better father, either in the ways that I raise my businesses or if I'm an eventual, actual parent of a human child. I want to do better. I can be angry, but I actually just literally want to do better. This is biologically frustrating to me because when I'm confused why the things that he does make me feel so small and so hurt, all I can do with that anger is try to do better. So I'm facing eviction, and I'm going to be describing how I believed it was possible for my father and I to work together. I literally did. And now moving forward, I have to say, if I need to move forward without his structure, functionally in my life, I will be automating his role. My major in college was learning and education studies with a concentration in applied learning science. So basically, the science of applying how to learn. For a long time, I thought that I wasn't skilled enough for my father to use my skills, so I tried to apply learning science to the domain of software engineering. Then, when I figured this wasn't happening fast enough, I tried to develop a language to help me learn faster. And in this case, that usually means more efficiently, and that is possible. It might sound bitter when I describe the reasons why it's frustrating to be facing eviction instead of describing how my father and I could theoretically raise $500 more per month with actual applied learning science applied to business. It's been a while since my father has made leadership decisions that are the kind that I feel like I can apply towards systems that I want to respect me. And now I can wonder which systems I do want to respect me, and for the most part, it's the team that has been supportive throughout the past 120 or so days. And a lot of peers that I've made in various phases of my life who I do miss dearly. It does feel strange. I thought that it made sense that if my skills are in applying learning science towards automation, then wondering about how to support my parents would mean if they reject that, the skill that I'm practicing is automating my parents. It seems mathematically like in a world where people have finite money, if they can spend money doing things that are more effective, they would. So, if with AI we can contribute to mental health first aid, suicide prevention, or the concept of a God centered business, if our goal is to be effective and we can be more effective with I personally believe we should. And I need to move forward by describing that I've wondered about this for a long time. A belief that I have is if my father's business were more aesthetically pleasing, it would naturally attract more customers. So I have been practicing interface design, and a lot of my posts on TikTok are about that. A long time ago, I dated somebody who actually has a positive relationship with one of their parents, leaving pronouns ambiguous. So seeing it was possible convinced me that it could be possible in my relationship with my father, and it won't be, probably. I'm not going to entertain the concept of just suddenly increasing his income while I'm homeless. I am pretty proud of myself because I haven't ideated at all. I haven't wondered if it was worth consider wonder I haven't wondered if it was worth continuing through this. So I know that I've gotten more skills. I know that my support system has developed that way. Is there a support group for people with extremely disappointing parents? It is possible to make a job posting and ask for money and call that your business. Like, you can do that. Front end engineers can design interfaces that people believe. Well, designers can reflect on the reasons why people find something eye catching or aesthetically intuitive. And data scientists can consider how to model a domain so the information received is relevant for any particular goal. And a front end engineer generally interfaces with both designers and data scientists. So, over the course of their career, they're going to gain some of these senses, some intuition about how to navigate data and design. It has been already a thing that people apply to jobs that aren't actively hiring and wait without receiving feedback. Sometimes there are job postings that require an amount of work that isn't going to be compensated. And if that role isn't even hiring, there's an amount of labor in our economy that is just being lost to employment friction. If no one has money, nobody can buy products, and people who want economies to flow will sometimes acknowledge this and create structures that distribute money. Producing a film and trying to make that a quality film by employing people who actually care about creativity is a decent way to create circulation in an economy. Hollywood and Netflix and other streaming platforms, other creative ensembles, have been the major driving factor behind this recently. Now there are language models that can code, and it's easy enough to make an experience that is interesting enough for someone to entertain navigating parts of it for a bit. So you can construct a frame where someone can play a game, a mini game sense kind of thing. It's possible to create portals where people can play games, and the ways we describe our relationship to these portals is relevant. I already have a team and am looking for income for circulation. I don't care if that's called a job because my responsibility is to continue doing the work that I understand is effective. Like, after having gone through dozens of years of training, school, like, theoretically, the reason why we have public education is so we can describe why we are theoretically qualified for whatever we're doing. So I would like to join a team of other people who are motivated to apply skills towards engineering and creating products that actual people want to engage with. And that product could theoretically be a job application portal that people find entertaining enough to want to fill out. But if that job application portal doesn't lead anywhere, I think we're making the world worse by pointing to it. So I would like to point to structures that are more rewarding towards more sustainable economies. Cheers.